Hey everybody, and welcome back to Send News, the Inside Gaming podcast where we talk all about video games. I'm Brian, your host, and now
I'm Alanah.
You jumped in. That's okay.
And I'm Connor.
I'm Evan. Did we do it?
Nailed it. Yeah,
We got
We got there.
We checked the box. I don't know if we
Flawless
did it.
from absolutely everybody. Nobody.
Weirdly less awkward than some of our other intros.
That's true.
Yeah, so we're going to start off. Connor had some ideas to talk about Halo. So Connor, tell us. You have a lot of Halo thoughts. Please share
Connor
them.
has
I have-
ideas.
Some Halo thoughts.
Okay.
I got, don't build it up too much. I don't want to be
too late.
Oh God. Okay. No, I mean, we obviously talked about Halo last week, but it's still, trending. And also it's a cool video game to talk about. I love talking about video games. I just wanted to talk to you guys and people like Alanah with far more Halo knowledge than myself, because I haven't played all of them, but it's interesting to me to see what a franchise does when it reaches into like the later stages, like what we've seen Gears do, and then like Final Fantasy and like, Metal Gears and all sorts of games have to innovate, but also stay close enough to the formula. And with the open world and the grapple hook, like it seems like they're trying to stay very close to the original Combat Evolved vision, but also how can they differentiate that?
Yeah.
Also, you have to remember that Halo changed studios, and that's a whole disaster that I would love to one day, when they're allowed to talk about it, actually interview somebody about. Okay, bye, Connor.
I was closing a window.
It's cool. Yeah, I mean, because they changed. They changed from Bungie to 343, obviously, and I think that meant that it was a new studio of people who might have different passions and visions, who are sort of being forced to keep that same vision from a studio that is made up of different people also. So that's a whole nightmare of a thing. And I feel like the direction, well, I believe Halo 4 and 5 still sold just fine. I actually haven't looked up sales numbers, but I don't remember any reports of it flopping by any regard. Connor, he keeps walking away.
Sorry, I'm here.
I do think that fan interest in Halo significantly dropped when that change happened. And it wasn't just because people were like, oh, I don't want a new dev. Most people don't know. It was because they did change direction, probably a little bit more than fans wanted, certainly more than I wanted, which is why I'm happy that, despite totally agreeing with the criticisms that Infinite does not look like a next-gen game, it was a very strange choice to try to sell what is supposed to be the world's most powerful console with gameplay of something that, even the lighting doesn't look finished. But I keep saying I'm really happy that it looks like Combat Evolved, because that's what I want Halo. I just want more of that. I still play the Master Chief Collection all the time. So I'm really happy that Halo looks like Halo again.
So Halo 5 for sales was more than $400 million. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's still doing okay. But I know what you're talking about. It's like Halo 2 was like, that launch was one of the biggest launches I can remember for games at the time. And even Halo 3 still kind of
Halo 3 launch is wild.
That was enormous. I remember the kid in my school who got the Master Chief helmet with the dome that opened. And it's just like, having not playing Xbox at the time, I was like, all right, sure.
You're really into video games.
Right. I would just play Halo 2 split screen at friends' places. And then when I saw that, I was like, all right, Colin.
I also think they've done a good job of like drumming up interest in the series again through the Master Chief collection and sort of constantly improving it. It had a lot of issues for a long time, but they've stuck with it. And I think they've done a really good job of, in bringing various games to Steam. I think that it's been a really good kind of organic way to get everybody hyped about the franchise again. And I'm sure that was intentional.
Yeah, it feels like a reboot. I mean, now we're living in the age of the 2016 versions of Doom and Hitman, and like Doom very much a reboot because it's just called, both of them, Doom. I guess, because it's it's bringing it to current days, but this one's still also a sequel, so it's like, how are they going to walk that line? Because it feels like they're rebooting it, but also just going back to the classics. It's like New Coke and Coke.
They did say when I spoke to them that it is a spiritual reboot.
Yes.
But is also a sequel.
Right.
But they did like multiple times say we're basically rebooting it. It's very important to us that it has, that feeling of the original Halo that people love so much.
Right, because they want to get new people. They don't want to people, I feel like, to think like, oh, I've got to go back and play all the old ones, because I don't think a lot of people are going to do that. And if you're
I mean, there's a lot of Halos in the grand
yeah,
scheme of things.
exactly.
It's cool that they are virtually all accessible. Not all of them are on the Master Chief Collection yet, but they have done a really good job with that. But they did also say it's a sequel, so it's like they're also not going to alienate the people who are super into the Forerunners, which I'm just like, kind of feel like that means that the story's going to be a giant mess.
Yeah. I mean, they look cool, and I guess that's about the gist of it, right? You like the Didact stuff and Cortana.
But I mean, I just don't know how they're going to
do
both of those things at once. I'm very curious to see how they pull it off.
Yeah, also, I think there's two things I think that stand out to me, and what you said, Alanah, about the two different studios. We're still seeing similarities between like Destiny art and lore and like Halo stuff. You can see it pretty easily. Like if you look at the Traveler and in Halo 4, obviously the Didact ship or whatever was like identical. It's just like big sphere or whatever. And then in Halo 5...
It was funny. I don't know if you saw that Twitter video where someone like put Destiny and Halo side by side, but then someone in response put Halo 3 and Destiny side by side. And you're like, this argument doesn't make any sense. Because like there is cross-pollination between those teams too. Yeah, some of them are the same people.
It's definitely like deeper, like lore Bible stuff that you don't really usually see in the game. So it's interesting to see those two things between the studios. But again, to Connor's point about like Final Fantasy and some of these other legacy games, like Resident Evil remakes are a great example of like reimagining a game of what it was and bringing out the best of it and modernizing it. Halo hasn't. I don't feel like they've really nailed that part yet, because the combat itself still is so very good. But even with the grappling hook that we've seen now in Halo Infinite, like we've seen other games with that kind of mechanic like years ago, like Bulletstorm, for example, had a really cool grappling hook mechanic. And it's cool that they're adding it and they can do new stuff with Halo, but it doesn't look, like you kind of said also on it, like it doesn't look like the showcase game for your next generation of consoles. It doesn't look like it's like on the scale of like a Half-Life 3 or something, or a Half-Life 2 that like is really trying to push the genre in a different, unique, and interesting way. Kind of like what we got with like Zelda Breath of the Wild, right? Like we're looking at Halo and maybe it doesn't matter, like you said, because I definitely have a nostalgia for Combat Evolved also. So I'm psyched. Like I saw the trailer and I was like, it doesn't look as good as it probably should for a console launch, but let's go. Like I'm ready.
Yeah, my reaction was absolutely, it looks like Halo and that's all I want from it. I don't care about it being graphically impressive, but there are some interesting things about it aging, to what you bring up, Connor, is like, I think that maybe Halo is going to look bad no matter what, and like that's not an excuse for like some of those faces looking pretty poor. And again, I think the lighting is their main problem.
But Reach looks great. I think Reach looks amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, the design of Halo is possibly just outdated at this point. It is possible that particular sci-fi design has just become cliche and looks very early 2000s no matter what they do.
Right, it's very Windows XP is what it feels like.
It was like, I don't know, like I think the Forerunner saga was trying to get away from that, but then people like me were alienated because I was like, but it doesn't look like Halo, which is like, I don't even know how you win. And the grappling hook's such an interesting one because I feel like we're getting those more and more in video games. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima has a grappling hook. Sekiro basically has a grappling hook. Those are games that you would not expect to have that kind of system. And I wonder if that is some kind of recognition that players in any kind of large world are sick of just running places, maybe?
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that Metroid Prime is very much ahead of its time, and this is where we're going with
Hell
Halo
yeah,
in a lot of ways, actually,
Yes.
That's what I want out of this game, but
I'll go with Just Cause 2. That'll be my touchstone.
That's a good pull. Yeah, that's a great pull.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm curious about the open world and the grappling hook, because where I'm coming from is I didn't really grow up with Xbox. I didn't go back and play them, and I had like a passing knowledge of Halo, and the only one I played in full was ODST, which I loved, and is also very different though from the Master Chief proper collection. I know that's technically part of it, but for me, seeing the differences is kind of what might bring me in. I did play a lot of 4, and I was like, I don't like this. It's just like,
it's a hard balance to strike for sure.
Definitely. I mean, I don't know. Part of me is concerned that they're a little bit late to the game on the open world and then ways to get around the open world. But if it's done well, I don't care if they're on the trends or not.
Yeah, I did ask them, and I think I mentioned this last week, how many worlds there will be, and they said they wouldn't answer, which implies to me that as the story goes on, there are multiple open worlds.
Mm-hmm.
So no one still seems to be entirely clear on if it's like, is it like a Last of Us where you have a Seattle open world, and then you have a scripted section, and then you have another one or something like that?
Right.
I'm not entirely sure how that's going to function. Maybe someone has done another interview since the conference on Thursday, but I'd have to look into it. But yeah, the open world stuff, like, I'm completely fine with, because I think that Halo's enemy variety will hold it together. What the concern for me there is weapons. So, like, if you play Halo on Heroic or Legendary, which I implore you to do. Related, though, oh my god, we were playing Halo 3 Legendary on Friday. On PC, it's so easy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my god, it was. I think maybe it's just that's the first time I play with 4 people as well. But I was like, this isn't legendary. This is so simple. But like, one of the issues I have with Halo on the harder difficulties, not an issue in a criticism, it's just something that makes it challenging, is you run out of ammo. So how does that work in a sandbox? Are you going to have the sniper rifle in the ship that's gone down that I know is down the cliff if I head left right here?
Yeah.
Like, how am I just going to be picking up the weapon every enemy has, which Halo does make you do, again, on Legendary pretty often, but it also can mean that you get stuck with something that you hate. Like, I don't really like a plasma rifle too much, and you can just end up with a plasma rifle for a really long time, and it's like, just give me my battle rifle, damn it. And are things like that going to be harder to find? How are things going to spawn? Like, I'm certainly curious about it. Yeah, it is a complicated thing, and I think one thing that they probably lied to us about is I don't buy that this is a 10-year plan. I don't buy this is going to be a 10-year game. I think this is going to be a Forza Horizon type, or I want to say an Anthem type, where there are global events that happen for everyone. Gets updates, sure, but I don't think that they expect people to be playing this for 10 years.
Meaning like, like were people saying it was going to be like a Destiny or something? Just like
a games of service?
They
Destiny
said,
really
like,
did think it
we
was
want you to play this for 10 years. Destiny did too. It was the same thing, and then obviously Destiny 2 came out.
I mean,
right.
So funny, like, just such a quick turnaround, like, and a second one,
and then Activision was like, "You're making a sequel."
Yeah.
And
I'm pretty sure Anthem thought they would at least make it to being a 5-year game, and that didn't pan out for them.
Hey, they're still trying.
They
haven't pulled the plug yet.
What?
Anthem 2.0 is out there.
Do you all think that, like, enough mindshare has been lost? Like, do you think that just based on the way that Halo looks right now, if it doesn't have, like, the most impressive and stellar and, like, gifable, like, gameplay, because that is coming. Like, the physics in Halo has always been really, really fun. Like, sniper rifle shots that bounce off a wall somewhere and hit a crazy long shot, like grenades, like sticking onto warthogs, like all of that stuff is coming to Twitter, to a Twitter near you, when that game releases, and that's super fun. But do you think that the mindshare already is so little? Like, do you think that this particular Halo game is going to do what it's setting out to do, to kind of bring all of that fanfare back, all of that audience back, be as big as like as a Rockstar game, be as big as like even a Call of Duty game at this point? Like, I don't know.
I think it's going to be just fine.
Okay.
I think it'll be fine, but I think things are a lot more fragmented now than when Halo kind of had its glory days, because back then the one of the huge selling points, if I recall, of like the first Halo is there was not another FPS on console like it. I mean, none
that worked.
Yeah,
it was the first good one.
Right.
The control scheme
there was
totally new, right?
And there was GoldenEye and stuff, but they revolutionized the control scheme. It was kind of the system seller for the Xbox. And so I think there's still a lot of love for it because of that. But now I think there's so many other games that have taken what Halo did and I think kind of evolved it and improved it. Not to say that this won't be good, because I think it's got a lot of promise, but I would be surprised if it sort of reaches the heights that the original ones did.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also don't think it's going to sell Xbox Series X's. I just think with it also being on PC, I really think Halo's going to be just fine. I think it'll have a solid competitive community. It'll have a significant player base. Like, it's not like I think it is the breakout title, but I'm like, it'll be fine. It's going to be active.
Yeah, like the Street Fighter of FGC, that'll just be around now. Like, there's enough of a fan base there that it will always sustain. I guess that's my feeling. Go ahead, Connor. Sorry.
I was just going to say it doesn't feel monolithic, because now it's also building off its own influences. So it's by its own nature just a derivative of itself,
Right,
which is kind of
right.
weird. Like all the people making it now at this point grew up as Halo as their formative game, probably. And
That's
so,
right.
like, I mean, it can be new, but for it to be Halo, it's still just going to be kind of like downstream from the originals, you know?
Yeah, sort of.
Visually, gameplay wise, they can change it up, but that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, how much can you change it for it to still be Halo?
Right.
I mean,
and a huge part of Halo is the multiplayer. And I know there'll still, like Alanah said, I think there'll still be a big, competitive scene there. I just think, there's so many other games now that are just vying for that. There's Fortnite, there's Warzone, there's Apex, there's PUBG, just to name
all
a
battle
very
royales
few.
you listed there.
Sudoku.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but
Which,
I mean,
to be fair, you're right. I think Halo needs a battle royale. Like, I really do think they need to do that. And I also, like, I really love battle royale modes. I'm a huge fan. I still frequently play Apex. But I also look at it as not like this cheap new video game everyone's making. It's just a new game mode. It's just a new King of the Hill. It's a new Capture the Flag. It's something, it's just a new mode.
new
a
Horde
multiplayer
mode. Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah,
much,
absolutely.
yeah. Or firefight, I guess, if we're making it Halo. But it's just a new version of that. And I actually think a Halo battle royale, because of the vehicles, will work really
That's so
well.
true.
Yeah.
It would feel, I think, like Blackout. Of all of the battle
Yeah.
royales I've played, that's the one that seems closest. Also, it's
super
that one was
vehicle
like very
heavy,
vibrant and photorealistic. It's like not so cartoony. I would like
And
to,
Battlefields be pretty.
it would be cool for the open worlds to like shift and change in single player too, in the way that they do in Fortnite. Because like one of the coolest things about the battle royale genre is the willingness to like scrap the old maps and stuff. Like, like kill your heroes. Like, we love the Loot Lake, but it's just gone now. And like, you can't load a save, which is like totally opposite to the way so much of gaming is. Cause you can have like infinite saves in other games where you're like, I want to go to this state, or you can like have, the world stays stagnant. So like if an open world game is going to come out in 2020, then I feel like a cool innovation to see would be like, be less precious with the map, I think.
Fortnite is actually incredible in that, like,
Yeah.
I don't play that game. I don't like playing that game.
Right.
But what it does where services are concerned,
amazing.
boy, is that
Yes.
awesome.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
so cool. And there's an event in Fortnite, again, a game that I do not even enjoy playing. I tried, was like, this ain't for me, that's okay.
Yeah.
I will still pay attention to the events because they're that cool.
yeah.
That I want to
Right,
watch.
the way
meteor.
they did the black hole thing was genius.
Yeah.
To
It was cool.
take their game offline for however many days they did.
yeah.
And it was amazing. Yeah, they continue to kind of set the standard for how to run a live service game like this.
That world
Yeah.
changes in the way that we thought MMO worlds would change, like in the
Yes.
beginning of how
Yeah,
it
that's
does
right.
exactly that thing of like persistent world, and they commit to that like gimmick or like philosophy or concept or whatever, and it is really cool to see like it just kind of change and evolve and move. I just
Yeah.
wanted to
They've
add
done concerts.
one thing to Brian's point about those other games of service. I think Counter-Strike looked kind of bad for a long time, and it's done all right, especially in the competitive scene, I don't know.
It's still,
Whatever.
people still love it.
It's still people still playing CSGO out there making tons of money.
I'll be interested to see with Halo just how they balance the kind of keeping it traditional Halo, but also with enough new things to keep people interested, because you always walk that line with these storied franchises of satisfying sort of your diehard fans, but then try to move it forward enough to where you're giving people something new.
It's also the thing that I keep thinking about where Halo is concerned, though actually I think this one might be M-rated, is I have a habit of forgetting when talking about video games. Like, I always am like, how does GTA 5 always the best-selling game? Who doesn't own it? It's kids. There are these people who every year, a bunch of them turn 12. It's this like entirely new group of people who never played Halo 1 and didn't have an original Xbox. Are those people going to care about Halo? If the Fortnite crowd is that same group of people, and supposedly like Fortnite is becoming less cool in the schools, I hear, it's like more like becoming younger, is Halo intentionally trying to stay cartoony to keep to that style where maybe they will pivot Halo to be the game that you graduate from Fortnite to?
Maybe.
Because there are still parents who are going to be
interesting.
like, you can't play Call of Duty, that's too realistic and it's got the swears in it. Like,
Right.
Halo, maybe they'll be allowed to play. I don't know. But I think that like that's the new market you're talking about isn't us, isn't gamers who are our age. Like, it is completely new people who've never played a Halo game because they were too damn young.
And I think you see that with movies too. You try to hit that PG-13 target to where you can still have a base of kids, while appealing to older people, but not M-rated to where it's just like completely, it's not something the parents will let their kids play.
I'm trying to find the rating.
Like Minecraft, I mean, anybody can play that. That's a huge reason for
definitely.
Success. Yeah.
And always.
I think, if we're talking franchises that have had to innovate and cater to new audiences, you can't not talk about Fast and the Furious, which look at the way that's changed. Like they just turned into superheroes in action movies, and like with the whole MCU, we've seen it shift. Maybe so obviously as drinking Corona to now they drink Coke. And like,
right.
It's just like, they're getting younger audiences. I mean, like they are just action heroes. And it's like, it's less about just sex and cars and more just about vaguely family and and jumping out of planes and stuff.
Yeah, it's I love those movies. Sequences sort of stitched together.
We've seen them change and cater to also Chinese audiences. That's a big thing for Fast and Furious.
Looks like Halo is unrated.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah.
Unrated.
That'll come.
We'll find out.
Unrated. All right. Anybody else have any thoughts on Halo before we move on? We hit that pretty hard.
Yeah.
The shit out of it. Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to a new release. Well, it's been out for a few weeks now. Ghost of Tsushima. We've been playing it some. We have thoughts. Guys, let's hear them.
I think that game is a lot better than people give it credit for, and I don't know. I see where the parallel and the comparisons come to Assassin's Creed, but I feel like everybody forgot that studio made a little game. Sucker Punch made Infamous. Sorry, made a little game called Infamous, which already had
Sly Cooper.
Yeah, and Sly Cooper, which and Infamous already had a lot of those like kind of questy trappings and that kind of old school vibe. And I mean, to be fair, I think the first Assassin's Creed came out before Infamous did, but I just didn't know that like Sucker Punch had this game in them. Like it is such a beautiful and like massive world. I think there's probably some fair criticisms in terms of like tokenism to an extent, but I think like when you even have Japanese developers from other companies being like, I wish we made this game, like they did something right.
It sold really well in Japan.
Yeah,
and it is worth noting, Sucker Punch like doubled in size for the development of this game. Yeah. I think they're 150 now. They are still one of the smaller of the Sony first-party studios, like Naughty Dog and Santa Monica are much bigger. But this game it's an interesting thing you point that out, Connor. Evan, because I was saying, I said this recently that I was like, this game feels underrated, but in a really strange way, and that it doesn't, because actually it's selling incredibly well. Like the user score on Metacritic is really, really high. People are singing its praises, but for some reason, like despite it being one of their best-selling new IPs ever, I think it has sold better than Horizon Zero Dawn at this point.
It did. Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's just like, it still for some reason feels like it's being ignored. I don't know how I feel that way though.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of not, but I think it's probably the state of play, and like when we originally saw it, it got so much criticism for just looking too much like Assassin's Creed, and now I don't feel like people are correcting themselves, so that still has that on it, where it's not Assassin's Creed. Sure, it's a lot like a lot of open worlds, but it's more like Red Dead or Breath of the Wild, which are, some of the best games this generation, without a doubt. Red Dead 2 and Breath of the Wild would be in virtually everyone's top 10. They're both incredible, and this game like just very organically plays on things that they did without feeling like it's iterative or like it's copying them. I really, really like it. I think
this will get better reviewed as time goes on. It feels like people sort of reviewed it and moved on, and so I think those first impressions kind of hardened, or the Assassin's Creed comparison got brought up in like every review I read. But yeah, you're right. I mean, 2.4 million units in the first 3 days, fastest selling first party original IP for the PS4. I mean, it did really well. And for Sucker Punch, I don't think it was quite like Horizon Zero Dawn was for Guerrilla Games. Like, where the fuck did this come from? Like, this is such a departure, but pretty close. Yeah, exactly. But for Sucker Punch, I mean, this is definitely their masterpiece, and definitely more ambitious and bigger than anything. I also think with Ghost of Tsushima too, just the photo mode, it kind of, I don't think it overshadows the game, but like a little bit. Because that's what you see get shared so much.
But
a video on this very channel about photo mode.
That's right.
There is. It's pretty
cool.
cool.
I felt so inclined to check it out.
I think
because no one else did.
But think about like why.
I'm just kidding.
Think about why photo mode works. It's because that world just looks so freaking good. There's just you come over different cliffs and stuff, and you see like different fields with chrysanthemums or the purple ones. Chris Hansen's.
Get out of my
world.
Chris Hansen.
Why don't you take a seat?
Have a seat.
Purple or white or yellow flowers. Like you've got sections like the Golden Forest, which you're just like, wow, this is just really impressive to see. And I think there are a lot of fair criticisms about Ghost of Tsushima. I think like it's at ends. Like instead of having the waypoints, having the wind, I think that stuff really works. But then they still also sometimes give you that on-screen icon. It's like they're trying to get the best of both worlds, and I think they kind of missed it sometimes there. Like the birds can be a little weird or hitchy, and they get stuck on buildings or something. You're like, was the treasure like under this house or whatever? Like that stuff is a bummer. But yeah, I think what you're saying, Brian, the combination between the way the combat works and feels and photo mode is just, it's impressive. It's super impressive. I accidentally blew up a horse the other day, and was able to like stop the game and like take a photo of this, just being like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
It's right there. It's very accessible from the D-pad, which is great.
It's great.
Yeah.
I love the photo mode. I'm still, to be honest, a little lukewarm on the game. And at first I thought that was, I started it the same day I finished The Last of Us 2, and Last of Us 2 spoiled me so much in terms of just how fluid and polished it is. Like the most polished game I've ever played by far. And so in contrast, Ghost of Tsushima at first felt like janky to me, but some of it still feels like it's there. It's very like video gamey in a way that I don't think hurts it, but I don't know. There's certain things where I'm like, it just takes me out of it. And like, so there's a lot of small stuff for me too, which is like the fact that like, I want to open this door, but instead I crawl under the building or whatever. And it's like a lot of like all the same action button, but like overall I have been playing it more. And as I've been unlocking stuff, I do like it more when it gives me more tools, and the world is very pretty. I think I have to put more time into it because I definitely, I really enjoyed Infamous Second Son and First Light, and like, maybe I liked the way they were making those games better, but yeah, I do see all the things.
has jank. That stuff is definitely there. Like this game, I don't think is a 10 out of 10. The criticisms I have are like, I don't like the enemy AI. I think the stealth is way too easy. I do kind of feel like the combat sometimes can be. It's mostly the enemy AI that causes me problems, but just like feels heavy in a way that I don't necessarily want it to. Sometimes like when I'm trying to pull out an arrow, it doesn't quite work. Like I've had like some animation issues. The lip sync is off. Like it certainly has some polish issues for sure. But the open world is something that I feel like it's just absolutely incredible. And it's also, the characters are so good that this is a game that I feel like if anyone just tries to beeline straight through the main story, or if it's a game they're playing while they're on the phone or like on Discord and they're not actually paying attention to the narrative, you'll lose a lot, because otherwise the mission design is actually pretty much the same thing every time. It's like walk alongside this person, cutscene, this person is dead, go kill this person, whatever. It's all like pretty much the same stuff because it's a video game.
Stop and start with the way the missions go.
That drives me nuts. That is my least favorite thing about it.
It is
how stop and start feels.
I feel like I haven't been able to get into it, and I've even like, since starting it, bought Doom Eternal and started playing that, which is just like so far in the other direction. It's just like constantly moving. Everything's being thrown at you, and it's totally dynamic. Yeah, and it's just like, I mean, maybe that's just what I needed at the time, because I do want to put more time.
It could also not be for you, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's right.
That is okay. Yeah, I don't know. I also feel weird about the way like it gamifies certain things, like with the like reflect on your father's death and get extra health, and it's just like very like, here's a reward, you did it, you
took part in
to
reflect on your father's death.
I love that stuff because I think that it like, I appreciate that stuff because sure, you're getting a reward, but the process of getting that reward in a Ubisoft game, for example, like a Ubisoft open world, is so much more video gamey. Like I feel like Ghost of Tsushima does a very good job. Even in Breath of the Wild, it's more video gamey. Leveling up your hearts is like, okay, I'm going to follow this beautiful yellow bird to this beautiful hot spring, and then I'm going to sit in it, and I have a choice about what I want to learn about Jin's backstory. So I'm going to click the one that I'm slightly more interested in and which character he's thinking about and what he thinks of them, and then I'm going to watch him talk about them. And then I get out, oh, I got some health. But like the process of it is what I find to be like beautiful and interesting and so pleasant is the word that I used to describe this game.
I don't disagree. I think that would be reward enough, is what I'm saying. I don't mind just having
flavor
an extra
parts.
touch,
but I'm not doing it for the points, which I think Ghost of Tsushima is very specifically designed so that you aren't just grinding in an open world that's a chore where you're unlocking a tower and then there are a million things on your mini map. Instead, like maybe
fair.
a peasant talks to you and then you unlock a location. So there aren't just like random things on your map that you're like, what is this and how did this get here just because I went somewhere? It's actually organically someone told you there's a Mongol camp down the road. Then it appears on your minimap as a question mark. So it's like, I feel like it just does a really good job of like taking the gamification actually out of that open world. And sure, you still like get points for like sitting naked in a bath and thinking about your uncle, which, video games always have to be inherently a little bit silly.
Points for that.
Yeah.
But I feel like it made me not ever try to grind. Instead, I was always present in the world. And obviously, again, that's always just depends on you and how you respond to things in an open world. That's not necessarily the right way. I just found it so, again, pleasant, so freaking pleasant.
I think that's
I'm excited to play more.
Pretty good point. Do you think the gamification stuff does kind of come heavy at you if you're not like doing a lot of side quests through while you're mainlining? But I would also maybe suggest that mainlining is a good idea because you stealth completely kind of changes or for the better after like Act 2. I think there's some stuff that happens there where it doesn't necessarily change the way you play, but it just makes it a more fun experience, I think, in terms of the way that your stealth equipment it's upgraded, and your ability to kind of like make that choice if you want to continue to play that way or still just be a samurai that calls out every single bandit you see on the road to do the duel, and then you lose like 10 in a row and you're like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do this. But yeah, like so at one point I was like, is this broken for me? I know I let go of the button in time to slice these dudes up, and I have the upgrade that lets me like kill 3 of them, and just like yeah, there is definitely jank there. I think there's a lot to be said, and this is a completely another podcast you could do about the story of Ghost of Tsushima, how it ends with Jin's eternal struggle. But it is cool how they tried to tackle it, right? Like there's certain like side missions that aren't even canon or like mainline to the overall story where you'll like jump down and try and assassinate a dude in just a random side quest, and Jin will have a flashback about his uncle telling him like how to be a better samurai, and him.
But that's not scripted.
Yeah.
As well. Those are organic.
I just had one of those.
In that, yeah, it happens depending on how much of it you do, which I thought was really cool. There's also like a bunch of other unscripted stuff in this game. Like the more you play as Ghost, there will just be more storms present in the game.
Whoa.
Yeah, like stuff that you wouldn't notice that like
That's
a lot of it is really systemic in a very cool way. But yeah, I have some criticisms of the main story. Like there are side characters that I really liked. All of the mythic tales I think are fantastic. My favorite parts of the game for sure. But I think Jin's struggle is an interesting one. You know, it's about like what do you do in a time of desperation? How stubbornly do you stick to something you've been taught, or do you adapt and evolve and do the things you have to survive? Like, I think there are definitely interesting themes there that I don't feel like I've seen that many video games play on. But also, like, I find Jin sometimes to be a little bit boring. I wish he had a little bit more of a sense of humor. And yeah, I don't know that they nail that struggle entirely. I think to totally not get into spoilers, the ending is cool. What happens there is something that I like appreciated the way that they dealt with it. But again, it's certainly not a perfect game. It's just that I think the open world does so many things that I really, really like.
The creative director of Yakuza like said Jin is ugly even, right? He's like, I don't understand why
Don't blow this. This is all in the roundup tomorrow.
Oh, jeez.
I think Jin's a babe. Also, the guy who plays Jin was streaming it, and he clearly doesn't play a lot of video games. There's a part where everyone was trying to get him to go to a hot spring, and he does, and he sees his own butt, and he goes, yeah. Why did I say yeah, my own butt?
That's funny.
I wish I could see my own butt.
Just full-length mirror, that's all you need. I do feel like this has been a pretty good 1-2 punch to end the PS4's life cycle between this and Last of Us 2. Pretty strong exclusives, and that's what the PS4 was known for. But yeah, to kind of go out like this in 2020, even with COVID and everything, I mean, they were both probably pretty much done at this point, but Sony's killed it this generation. I mean, they have, and they're clearly looking to ride that momentum with the PS5, but the PS4, just looking back, has been an absolute beast in terms of games.
Yeah, bookended by Sucker Punch. Second Son
That's
was the
right.
first game I had on the console, and Ghost of Tsushima will very likely be the last.
The work from home stuff too. I actually think Ghost of Tsushima was more finished than The Last of Us Part 2, but they kept pushing Ghost because The Last of Us kept pushing. I imagine Ghost was actually done significantly sooner, and it was just adapting to whatever The Last of Us was doing.
I figured it was because they didn't want to compete with Sekiro last year. Or just to have two. Not that they were the same game, but you know what I mean.
Totally.
Yeah, I always wonder if that helped or hurt them.
Yeah,
and I feel like it maybe probably helped. It's also an interesting conversation of like, did The Last of Us help or hurt this game? Like, I feel like Ghost of Tsushima, this is like a thing about reviews in general, was never going to get tense. It didn't even matter how good it was going to be. Just the time that it came out and the kind of game that it was,
that's right.
It could not get a 10,
yes.
which is, it mostly got like 8s and 9s from a lot
It's
of
not like Rockstar made it and you get the automatic 10.
Right. I mean, same as Naughty Dog at this point.
I really like where this conversation is going. This is real.
It's just not the right studio for it, which is like brutal. But I do wonder if like, I know that like some of the online discourse, which is very funny, have been people who hate The Last of Us for being like, SJW trash, are then championing Ghost of Tsushima, which is very entertaining because your money is still going to the same place. Right. Like, buy this instead.
Right.
Literally still the same company.
Right.
You're not carving out some unique identity here.
Literally the same. The money goes all to Sony. It does. They do not care. Both games sold very well, but we don't have to give credit to those people anyway. But then it's also like, for me, which is like almost maybe the opposite of how you felt, Connor, is I loved that I got to play The Last of Us Part 2 right after Ghost of Tsushima, the way around. Because I was just so sad at the end of The Last of Us Part 2. Like, I finished that game with tears in my eyes. And then I just watched the credits play out and I just thought about it and I was just bummed. Like, just so like, oh God, like the toll of that game, which is what it tries to do. And then getting to play Ghost of Tsushima right after it is like a perfect palate cleanser because I was like, yes, I still have to kill dogs and that sucks. But I'm happy. Yay!
Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just a masochist and I just like to sit with it.
Yeah, true.
Like when Red Dead 2 ended, what a wonderful ending. And then it went right into the epilogue. I was like, nope, and didn't play the epilogue for 2 months.
I know what you mean.
I did the same. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, now's not the time. And even that night after I finished Last of Us 2, I started up Ghost of Tsushima and I just couldn't get into the right headspace.
Right. Oh yeah, you gotta give yourself some time.
Yeah, I didn't
do
that. I think I went to bed and like thought about it for a while.
Well, I don't sleep. Have you guys tried meth? It's awesome.
I'm so much more productive.
I've like reset my brain with like Doom and what else have I been playing? Oh yeah, and like just some multiplayer stuff, and it's just like pushing it back and like kneading at it. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And now I'm like, okay, I've had my ginger. I've had a little sorbet. right. And I did play it the other day, and I am enjoying it a lot more than I was at first. So maybe I just needed to process.
Yeah, can happen.
The other game.
All right, let's move on to some more news. And really the big news this week was Star Citizen. It's back. It's not out or anything, but nope. The fans basically got upset with the developer, specifically about the single player portion of the project, which is called Squadron 42. Back in March, the developer came out with this post saying we're abandoning the content roadmap. It's not accurately portraying our progress on the game. We're going to think of something else. But in the meantime, and they sort of went down this list of all the wonderful communications they were going to have with the fans, AMAs and check-ins with the developer and their team. None of that has really happened. And then so there was kind of a big blow-off post on the game's subreddit where someone was just like, WTF. Everyone, it got upvoted a lot, and then kind of media like us took notice, and it became kind of, and finally it got their attention because then the developer responded yesterday with a roadmap to the next roadmap, super convoluted, but like, okay, we're gonna come out with a roadmap. Here's all the steps though that we need to take to get to the new roadmap. And it's just another example of this game is just so it's what are we 8 years in more
Have
than
they had any lawsuits?
yes.
yes.
I don't
over
think
the
anything's
engine.
been accessible. No, but
I mean,
fans have sued too. I think there's one going on in Europe, but somebody here tried to sue them, and we're like, we're America. You can't sue a business for any reason.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I was gonna say if someone in Australia tried to do it, they'd probably have their ass handed to them.
Right.
Because like Australia, Steam had to change their policies. Sony did too. Their return policies because you have to give consumers refunds.
Right.
So I feel like that could probably be a lawsuit if somebody tried, but I don't know how that works internationally either.
The game feels like the bus on speed. Like if it goes below 55 miles an hour, like it all comes to an end because it feels like, yes, they are doing development, but they will just sort of post these lengthy videos about some new ship they made or a very obscure mechanic. And so it's like we're getting this weird granular level on some areas, but then, when it comes to everything else, we don't really know. And there's never really any kind of overall, there's an early alpha of the MMO portion. But yeah, it's just, it's raised well over $300 million at this point, and it's, which would already make it the most expensive game ever made. And yeah, people are just, I feel bad for the people who have backed it. I hope they get a game at some point, but it seems like more and more they're coming to the maybe realization that it just might not happen or it won't anytime soon.
The subreddit currently says it's 3.1 thousand days until SQ42 releases.
Wow.
That's too long.
Yeah, that's like
what? Is that 8 years?
Yeah, that's multiple
a long
years.
Time.
Almost.
It says that like on the little community thing.
They're predicting like how long it'll take? Or
I don't know. It just R-Star Citizen has 214k citizens and then 3.1k days until SQ42 releases, which is the single player.
How do they do that math? I don't understand.
Yeah, gamers
probably
are patient.
Guess.
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah, that's probably it. I mean, completely uninformed.
The roadmap to the roadmap is a very like big brain developer solution to the perceived problem of like, okay, well, we're just gonna produce the crap out of this messaging and we'll figure out how to get there and let's draw the roadmap.
Also announcing it before they have the roadmap to the roadmap.
Yeah.
So pointing you towards a road, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that, or maybe, I don't know.
No, you're right. You're right.
My head hurts.
They don't have...
I need to lie down.
Well, no, they posted the roadmap to the roadmap, but the roadmap doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But like the roadmap to the roadmap is still not much of a roadmap. Like,
the roadmap to the roadmap, it has multiple steps, each that they say will be several weeks apart. They said, in the immediate future, we plan to deliver the following communications. Give an explanation of the goals of our new roadmap and what to expect from it. 2, show a rough mock-up of the proposed new roadmap. 3, share a work-in-progress version of the roadmap for at least one of our core teams. And 4, then finally transition to this new roadmap. The roadmap to the roadmap's going to take longer to produce than some actual game.
I didn't catch beforehand that there is a rough draft of that roadmap too. So there's one more step before we actually get the...
So it's a rough draft of the roadmap to the roadmap, or is it a rough map of the road draft to the rough map draft?
It's like they just used all this money to create an endless bureaucracy where where money goes into and they communicate with gamers about a theoretical game that's in development. I think I said this on the daily, but it's like a meta game at this point, or like an ARG than an actual game.
I don't know if this joke plays, but they need the bends. They need the bends. the notorious Rockstar developer who would come in and, well, I guess it's not a very good joke because mostly he would come in and force people to work a whole lot to get a game finished.
So just crunch.
Just crunch.
We spoke about it on the daily, but like games need producers.
Yeah.
So like, this is like a sidestep, but Kojima's main producer left Koji Pro, the producer he's been working with for a really long time. Oh, I don't know. Ken's a friend of mine. Got me very drunk karaoke in Japan.
Hell yeah.
Great guy.
That's cool.
But I have not spoken to him about leaving, for the record. I have absolutely no knowledge. But where that stuff is, it's respectful. You don't ask. When we were in Japan, I was like, so what is Death Stranding? And he was like, it's not going to happen. But yeah,
he thought the game. He thought the game was just not going to happen?
No, he just wouldn't tell me any information.
You're screaming over Wonderwall. So what about Death Stranding?
No, I was very drunk.
This is on the record, by the way.
I'll remember everything.
Eating dumplings at like 2 a.m. Be like, what is this game? And he was like, it's not gonna
I missed those stupid
But anyway,
nights out.
he left that project, and I know Ken's been working with Kojima for a really long time, and that automatically makes me go, oh, Kojima's next game's never coming out.
Oh, that's interesting.
You don't have a producer. That's someone who,
That's true.
keeps everyone on track. They're so important and don't get enough credit in the games industry, I think.
Right.
Because they keep everyone on track. They manage every single team.
Yeah, you need a boss.
To varying degrees, basically, and also prevent that feature creep. They prevent things from getting out of hand because they're like, the priority is to get this game out, not to just make it.
Yeah, and it's been reported that there is nothing but feature creep. I think this is feature creep the game, basically. But
yeah, I feel like they don't have enough producers. And
I even feel like if they brought in somebody like a producer to come in and try to wrangle it, something tells me they would still have to like start all over, or something. They would be like, we can't use any of this. We gotta,
Well, yeah. By the time if that the roadmap is true or whatever the number is true about how many days it's going to take to finish Squadron 42, the footage and the capture they would have gotten with Mark Hamill will have been 8 or 10 years old at this point.
Oh my God,
the
that's
technology
so
changes every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, those faces don't look great in that trailer.
Yeah.
right.
So, Brian, have a lot of people left the studio?
Cloud Imperium Games or Robert, I don't know. Honestly, yeah, I don't have any knowledge of that. But
because that's the thing where you'd think devs would be getting frustrated.
Right.
I mean, if you.
But is there any pressure? I mean, like, is there really any pressure?
Maybe they don't have crunch and
right.
Yeah, the money's green. You go in every day to your nice like Santa Monica office on the pier or whatever. I think they have multiple offices for Cloud Imperium now across the world.
Yeah.
And
I think you're
also,
just funding their lifestyle.
Your check's still cash, and
yeah.
What does exist of the game could be very good, and
People
they may still
disappear
be
into
very
Valve.
excited about it.
I mean, I'm looking at footage right now of someone flying the Pisces, and it looks beautiful. Like, it's not like this game doesn't have merit. That's how it raised so much money. There is stuff
they
about
make really
sauces
cool
that
ships.
looks and I do want to play it, but I am also going to actively call them out. And I feel like we have been doing a very good job of this, to your credit, Brian, that they've taken so much of people's money and not done anything with it. Like,
at some point, do you have a responsibility to the people who have given you thousands and thousands of dollars to produce something? And it feels like they're kind of going after whales at this point too, just the big money donors, because they keep selling the ships, some of which cost like several $1,000s. It's just
crazy.
It's very strange to me. Do you guys think that a game or games plural will ever come out of this? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I would say eventually it has to happen. I think there is playable elements of it now. I just don't know if we can call that a game. And things are even more muddied with early access. I think I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought with your kind of original question, but I think at some point there has to be enough of a game here and people keep spending thousands of dollars on it. So I don't know if it's just the dream of having the ultimate space sim where you can run around and do stuff, and then it's slowly will get there over time. Like it's like weirdly becoming like Second Life in a weird way, where like so many people were invested in that, and I have no understanding of a comprehension of why. But I mean, if you're out there and you love what they're doing and you don't feel ripped off, like more power to you. To answer your question, like according to the Kickstarter's terms of service, there is no legal responsibility for them ever to finish. I feel like.
And that's a thing people have to remember. Is
you're
that
taking
when
a risk.
You back a Kickstarter, you are not buying a product. You are investing in it. That means you are giving someone money, and they have absolutely no obligation to give you anything. Like when you'd be like, but I bought this game. You didn't. That's not how Kickstarter works. You absolutely didn't buy anything. You just invested in their product.
You gave nerds money. That's what you did.
Pretty much. To hopefully make something, but they have no obligation to even fulfill their rewards.
Right. Yes, that's right.
And just remember, it is an investing platform, not a purchasing platform, not a pre-ordering platform. It's a different thing.
At this point, I mean, would it even be attractive for another company to come in, buy it, and release it in the state it's in now? Eventually when people stop, like if it fizzles out, is that just it?
That's the other
How close is it to being finished? Like,
Oh,
I don't
not
know,
at
because
all.
I could see them releasing just it as it is now, and it could be terrible in the state it is now. But like,
But
you
it
know,
is a game,
it could be a cash
technically.
grab, and it
Yeah.
could just be a company just being like, well, let's just put it out, and then they could maybe. I mean, like, we've seen all kind of things that, you know, for money, it's just like, you know, we'll just patch it together. We'll make like a weird. We'll have 4 different kinds of cutscenes. Some of them will be like sliding PowerPoint images, and then other ones will be fully animated. And it's just let's just fucking get it out.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think if they could, I mean, maybe some of it is just rebranding it too.
It's beautiful.
If you could like have one big sprint or a push to make it more game-like per se, and then call it early access or beta at least, which I guess maybe that's what they're calling it now. But like,
sorry, isn't it already playable as
Persistent
alpha?
Universe
yes,
has an
as
alpha.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think there's one star system with planets on it at
Yeah.
this point, but it still has, and so you can fly around. But it's not a complete game by any means, but there is like an alpha that you can do things
Yes.
in. But it's not multiple system. You know, it's still way, way, way off from what they promised. My question is the long term, we're acting like they have all this money, but they've spent a lot too. So how stable or you know, secure is the developer? There was that Forbes article last year, and it said at the end of 2012, Roberts was down to just $14 million in the bank. He has since raised more money, but you know, like he promised like 100 star systems and all. So my point is, like, the studio could go bankrupt. I mean, like they need to keep raising money because they're apparently just, it's going out the other end as well.
That is sort of what I think is going to happen.
Yeah,
like
I think so too.
I feel like the studio goes bankrupt. Somebody else tries to take the game, releases it, and it doesn't. It isn't what was promised. That's what I'm guessing. Obviously, that I have absolutely
right,
no confidence in that. And so Wild, like, here's what the vibe that I'm getting is what's going to happen is,
Yes.
like, what are their salaries? Like, how much money has he been making for the last 8 years? Is he getting millions of dollars a year? Like, I don't know.
They've spent a lot on
Question.
marketing, apparently. And if you go to the website and, like, they've clearly put a lot into, like, stuff like, you know, sort of features around, like, the site. And there's a lot of sort of nice graphics and functionality there. So they clearly have money to play with. But, yeah, it feels like they're spending it.
I have a fun anecdote about the site actually, because we've been making the thumbs for this week's daily stories, and I was looking for the logo for Squadron 42, and on the website they have a really nice clean logo, and then I tried to pull it down, but it's not a PNG, it's different geometric pieces like that make up the logo, and then they all transform together, and it's like, that's really smart and creative, but this is awful, and if this is the way that you're going about making your game, maybe not, maybe don't.
Right.
Just top to bottom
PNG.
a mess.
Yeah.
Just PNG would be cool.
All right, let's move on. Let's do one more news story, and then we'll do some questions real quick. But this was, we talked about this in the daily also. E3 obviously got canceled for 2020, along with literally everything else. But Superdata came out with a new report basically saying that the big publishers didn't really miss it. They compared kind of Twitch traffic. The PlayStation 5 reveal, 1.51 million average viewers. They compared that to a bunch of E3 presentations. Xboxes did less than 1 million. Game Awards last year, 0.6 million. Nintendo's Direct at E3 last year, 0.56 million. Now, obviously, and I brought this up, the PS5 reveal is a much bigger story. And so I think that's naturally going to pick or get a lot more viewership. But then they also compared Ubisoft's Forward event they held recently. 1.2 million viewers on Twitch compared to their E3 of last year, just 750,000. So if you're a bigger, you know, if you're one of the big console makers or a big developer, you can get just as much attention or more by holding your own events. So this might be really, really bad for the future of E3.
That's putting it lightly, I think, in terms of the motivation that these big publishers are going to have. Oh yeah, and you know, obviously all the
nobody had to give up their personal address and phone number.
Yep.
It was great.
There's already a huge stack of problems E3 was facing in terms of, you know, the doxing situation and them trying to pivot the show as a more consumer friendly thing, which just seemed like they weren't going to hit the mark, like heavily focusing on influencers and celebrities and stuff. And it was becoming less of what we know and love as E3. But like, yeah, now that the data's out, these big developers and publishers don't have any incentive to spend money on booth space to blow the doors off and do this kind of big, pinnacle show. They can just do like a Nintendo Direct style thing and be fine. And we've kind of known this already because
Nintendo's been doing, and Sony had pieced out. Yeah.
I don't think Xbox will stop doing the way they do because they still have the Microsoft Theater.
Yes.
They're paying for that license. May as well use that theater.
I wonder the most about that one. Yeah. Yeah, and
I feel like they will continue to, but it could be at any time of the year. I mean, they also have, like, I know they have their big conference in Brazil, and I think they did one in London this year, maybe somewhere in Europe. It just doesn't make sense to do it all at the same place anymore. E3 is the most helpful for the business side of things, which is a lot of pitches. There are studios who need to pitch their games to people at things like E3, GDC, DICE as well, and that is a massive loss. It's also harder for people on our side to get their start. E3 is a great way to actually get access to meet people in PR for the first time ever, to hand out a business card, to actually make sure that you are able to cover things when you're just starting out as a writer or media, or even people who are YouTubers or Twitch streamers. Like, not having access to that stuff sucks, and I think that makes PAX even more important. But it's also, I guess, just for littler games, for games that are smaller, indies, to be included in a showcase that they won't necessarily be included in now, and have millions of eyes on them every single time because it's E3. So there are people who know about games that have been in those showcases that otherwise won't. And if they're all segmented and people can choose what they want to watch because it's not the E3 event where I'm comparing all the conferences, those games won't get seen. They also won't get seen on a show floor. They won't get played by random people. So there are definitely business downsides for the little guys, for the most part.
I'm really glad you brought that up because they did mention that this will hurt the indies and sort of the middle and smaller size players. They compared the PC gaming show at E3, obviously focuses on more indies, mid-sized games. It got its traffic last year when there was an E3, 141,000 average viewers. They did it again this year, obviously independently or not connected to E3, just 68,000. So that was less than half. So that's, so that's a real bummer. And they said that basically their best bet now is to just get tacked on to, one of the, to Sony's presentation or something like that, or a Nintendo, also, an indie or something.
Yeah.
The PC game showcase this year, though, was super bloated and super weirdly paced. We did the live stream here on the channel, and it was just like 2 hours long and had no right being that long. So also,
that's way
there
too
are companies that have no idea how to. 2 hours. Yeah, there are companies that did not adapt to this medium.
But it's important too to note, like, things like the Wholesome Direct might not have happened. Like, that was a cool showcase for indies. That space didn't really exist before, like, E3 disappeared, and now they're forced to kind of do that on their own, which, maybe sucks, but like they've been doing that as indie developers already, right? Trying to get the word out about their games is probably one of the hardest things they have to face outside of, like, actually making a good game. Right. So maybe there is space for that too. You don't have a Wholesome Direct from last year to compare it to, but there was now this event that will have a bigger following next year if they do it again, because the last one already kind of set a precedent for, like, here's a cool thing you can watch to learn about, like, new up and coming indie games. And I think, like, the best bet is to get tied to a bigger show, but now we might see more people, like, even like the Kind of Funny guys, like this gives them more ammo to kind of pull in the smaller and unique stuff, which will show better, right? Like, so there maybe is some upsides for them there, but like the in-person to person meeting stuff, I think, like what Alanah was saying, is actually, like, super important. I think we talked about it on this show before too, of like, if you wanted to show, like, your small indie game to a big Microsoft exec or something, you kind of can. Like, if he's just walking by and he sees your laptop set up or whatever, and it's like, wow, this is cool, I want this on the Xbox.
And it's a chance for them to go hunting at this event, and I'm sure Microsoft and whoever send out people to go see what's out there, and hopefully snatch up a few games. So I think this shows that you still need a big platform, but it's just moved to more online. Like, it's still, you still need either to piggyback off something like Sony or something to get more eyeballs on it. Because if you're a small player, you can't just, you don't have a center of gravity where you can just direct everybody's eyeballs to.
Obviously, IGN and Jeff Keighley both did their, like, different summer of gaming type things. Have
Still
you guys
going.
watched any of that stuff?
Oh yeah,
I saw some of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been watching way less than I expected to. So like
Same.
I will occasionally look on Twitch, because Twitch themselves have been sort of hosting some of it.
Yeah.
But generally, like, it just feels so hidden away because it's not, again, part of this huge main show.
Just more fragmented now. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, that I have to actually seek out what time the things that I want to learn about are going to be spoken about, rather than just sort of like leaving it on in the background, or like, you know, being at E3 and seeing it all in person. It's,
yeah.
I'm curious how well those have done for either of those two, or if they are worth it for them, like sponsorship wise, like financially, or if they're gonna keep doing them. Don't know.
And there's still other things, like you said. I mean, PAX. There's other stuff around the world. So E3 is just one of those things. I don't think E3 changed with the times, maybe as much as it could have. I think they've made some mistakes along the way, and there's been a lot of reports of infighting and things like that at the ASA. So I think it might be kind of death by a thousand cuts, but definitely this might be their Appomattox in terms of not being around for 2020, because it definitely seems like people have learned lessons that E3 does not want them to learn from this.
Yeah.
I think there's only one maybe upside to this, and Brian, you and I talked about this in the IG Slack channel this morning. Just that, well, maybe by the time like COVID stuff kind of plays out, if ever, maybe that those booth spaces get a whole lot cheaper for the LA Convention Center or wherever you go, because you know they are not doing too hot right now. I'm sure a lot of events getting canceled for the entire year for those types of places. So.
Yeah, but I said this too.
Yeah.
When would you personally feel comfortable going back to something like this?
And that's a great point,
because I don't know. I don't know.
Never.
Right, exactly. Right, and maybe never might be the answer. All right, let's move on. Let's answer a few questions. This from Alex the Ramirez. Do you guys think it's possible that Xbox could go the way of Sega after this console generation? I'm assuming Alex means after the upcoming console generation. I don't think so. I think Xbox has been making a lot of good moves. I think Microsoft is a much bigger company than Sega. They seem pretty committed to gaming to me.
I mean, the Sega thing is an interesting one because my answer is like half yes. Like what Microsoft are trying to do with the next generation is go software services. The reason that you can play all their games on PC isn't them being stupid. Like everyone who's being like, well, why do I need to buy an Xbox Series X if I have a PC? Obviously, that's by design. It's because they want to get you into
They're not stupid. Yeah.
They want you in their software, right? They just
You'll
want
still
you to
spend $500.
You can, and I think that in that way they are sort of like Sega, in that yes, you're getting all these games on PC, and they are fine with that because they want you in Game Pass and they want people globally in xCloud, which is more of a big deal because there are, you know, literally people globally outside of America where I feel like we are a very console forward country, just even in the West in general. Australia is the same too. But you know, it's a thing where they could probably eventually start making hardware, but I don't think that would be quite the same as Sega because it's not out of failure, it's out of pivoting to services instead of hardware.
That's right.
Yeah. Which is what they're trying to do.
I kind of see it because in the way I think that he means like Sega started making games for Nintendo platforms, and in that way like Xbox obviously has a Minecraft license, and that's going to be everywhere because it's going to make them a lot of money
forever.
Forever.
Such a smart purchase.
Oh yeah.
But it's so hard to however much it costs, it didn't matter. Like it was going to pay off for them. I think it's such a different hard thing to compare just because Microsoft is so big and they are basically using games to leverage sales of and engagement with other Microsoft products, really, like,
and cloud
part
gaming.
of it.
I mean, they're gonna be heavy into that.
If they can use gaming to get you into the Windows ecosystem forever, like they will. That's
all they're trying to do.
That's their goal.
And
yeah.
They have they're the biggest company globally by market share or market capitalization. It is, but it's not like I think. Like Microsoft have failed at things. Mixer failed. Their size didn't matter.
Totally.
Mixer failed.
Yes, that's right.
They have shut down other things. But where video games are concerned, calling it Sega, in my head, I just read it as they're going to fail and have to go third party.
Right.
No. I don't think that is going to happen.
Yeah,
if it happens, it is by choice.
Yeah, maybe what it felt like at the beginning of the Xbox One generation, but then they cleaned house and they put Phil Spencer in charge, and they've spun things. Like you said, they
Phil's done a
pivoted.
great job.
Yeah, I think they
he's
were
amazing.
weaker in that right up in the immediate aftermath of that launch. I think
Terrible.
Phil
Metric was a
deserves
disaster.
ton of credit. All right, moving on. Daniel Goad asks, what year do you think game media will go completely discless, aka digital only? I think 10 years from now is a good. I can see like 2030, and we just don't have them anymore, or very very.
Yeah, I think
limited.
you'll always be able to buy it
Yeah.
if you want it, but it might be more of like a collector's, like a steel book.
I wonder
Like
what
a vinyl.
More likely.
I wonder what the qualification for this is, because I feel like, obviously we have the technology to do it right now, but then Analog just released their new like handheld, right? Or it's coming out August 3rd. Get your pre-orders ready. And I'm like, I want to buy the hell out of that and like have cartridges and stuff to play on it. But like for more,
that's like a niche thing.
yeah.
Too. Yeah.
But does that exist for like Xbox Series X and PS5 down the road? Do you get a device
they
that just
both
plays
have
these games?
discless versions, right?
Yes.
I think it's. I don't even want to guess because I feel like it's very easy to forget what circumstances people are in other countries.
Yes.
Like here,
Yeah.
despite I was a huge game collector in the last year, I still have over like 100 games stacked up in my parents' like closet under the stairs, quite literally, that I collected all of them and I loved having them physically. But then when I moved to the US and was living in smaller spaces, it just stopped being even accessible. So now I feel like I very rarely get physical copies. And I do want to mention, because it will come up in the comments, the argument for like, do you own, or I buy them because I want to own them. So even when you buy a physical game, you don't actually own it. You just
you're
own a
buying a
physical
key.
version of the
Yes.
same license.
Yes.
Especially now. So like physically owning a game doesn't, like aside from you having that license physically, is exactly the same as owning it digitally, in that they could cut you off at any point in time. Obviously an internet connection is required for that though. But you
can let a
don't
friend borrow
own
it. You can,
Yeah, there's still
things you
absolutely
can
benefits.
do. Yeah.
But it's not like but I want to own my games. You
Right.
don't. They can take it away
No.
from you at any point in time. They can lock
Yeah.
you out at any point in time. You don't. But
your
yeah,
your larger point stands. Yes.
Yes. I just don't know the answer to this question, because I recognize that there are people in different countries with internet connections that cannot sustain
Right.
digital purchasing, and I really don't know the breadth of that. I don't know how bad it is.
Yeah.
That's very true in America too. I mean, rural bandwidth issues
Yeah.
are a huge problem in this country, and like you've seen like the big tech companies that are like xCloud and Stadia, they're the future, and then you've got people that are like kind of in the middle of nowhere who are like, I barely have a cell phone reception.
Right.
Like,
America's a massive country.
America
By,
has so many blind spots. Is like
Yeah.
it should
Australia
be
too,
treated like
like-
a utility. It should be a utility, and it's
absolutely.
not. And until it is,
Connor, let me
if
tell
it
you.
ever is.
Let me fucking tell you. I would be home right now. I would have been home the whole lockdown and just worked on American time. But the fastest internet speed anyone at home has is 22 down, 1 up.
Is this in Australia?
Yeah. And it sucks so bad. That's obviously like one part of Australia that is the issue. Like,
But you
there are
always
definitely-
hear that. Yeah. I mean, that's legendary.
It's
for having
insane. They're like, and the utility thing is really funny because like it was 2 elections ago. One of the politicians who was running came out and was like, "We just like don't see it as a priority for businesses."
Right.
What?
What are you talking?
stupid.
What
The
do you
entire
mean?
world is online.
So
I mean,
stupid.
It's
lawmakers
absolutely
are
insane.
so laughably out of touch. Mark Zuckerberg was at the hearing, and somebody asked him a question about Twitter, and it's just like, well, that's not the right. Do you have any idea how any of this works?
Right.
Yeah.
Fucking
Yeah,
goofball.
it's a real
Jesus
problem.
Christ.
But yeah, I mean, Australia is a huge issue. Like, I would have been home this whole lockdown, and it would have been so nice if I
Yeah.
could have done my job from home. But I can't, which means I like risk my entire life to go home, basically.
Right.
Right.
It's also like very complicated. Australia's lockdown is really strict, etc. But yeah, it's I when I was home just for Christmas, my boyfriend wanted to play Apex Legends, and I was like, cool, I'll download it because my parents still have an Xbox because I gave it to them before I left, and it took 3 days. Apex Legends isn't that big, and
No.
also one of like my parents would like maybe turn the Xbox off, and I would have to be like, for fuck's sake, stop turning it off. You have to leave it on. They're like, what if it gets hot? I'm like, you have to leave it on. I want to play Apex.
Then it will be
in a
hot.
week from
Yeah.
now.
That's really
Right.
It's actually a certified heater, so please just leave it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is fun.
is how we're gonna make it
It's
through
a
the
very
winter.
hot summer.
When I play my
Christmas in Australia.
games with my brother, who's at my parents' house, he will unplug his PS4 from his room, take it downstairs into the office where the router is, with the monitor, with the TV, and then plug it all in and just set it to download. And it's still not that fast. It's just like totally like uprooting everything just to install a game.
Yeah. So for people like us who are in tremendous positions of privilege where this stuff is concerned, and also probably play more video games than the average, I basically have gone discless, as much as I find it a little bit sad because the collector in me wants stacks of video games. I still have a pretty big stack here. There's probably, I don't know, there'd be over 50 on my shelf here. But I think that I'm going to start buying like my favorite game every year physically to like still have a collection. So like last year I'll buy Sekiro physically because right now I don't have it, which means it'll be the third time I purchased that game, but that's fine. So I'll just keep doing that. I'll just keep having the ones I really, really love as like I have this from this year. Here's my collection now to just like appease that part of me. But generally speaking, I just don't know what people's situations are like globally. And I want to recognize that like for some people, it's just not possible yet. I don't know how far away it is from being possible. Like,
that's it. Yeah.
How a game is in South Africa doing, I don't know. I don't know what the situation is.
That's a great point. Yeah.
I buy Blu-ray still. You know, I own and they give you the game on digital. Maybe that'll be what happens. You buy the physical copy, you get the digital key.
All right, we are up on time. We went quite a bit over this time. So that's going to do it for us for this week. And just one programming note. I'm on vacation for the next 2 weeks.
Hey.
So I'm not going to be here.
Bye, Brian.
I'm not leaving. I'm just on vacation. Just
You're going on sabbatical?
No, it's not a sabbatical.
I'll be back.
I will be. I still need this job.
If I see you on stream with Bruce and Lawrence, I'm calling you out. If you're doing Q&A stuff.
Not good.
All right, guys. Have a great weekend. And I won't see you next week, but they will.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
And this game, I guess, really is all about Chief and the pilot, who is that new character that we saw. They keep saying the pilot
Antonio Banderas. Yes.
They keep saying the pilot is really important. And I was kind of concerned. I was like, oh, is he going to be playable? Am I going to have to play as this guy when all I want is Chief? And I managed to ask that, and they said